Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The curtains parted to reveal the familiar woodland scene, bathed in soft, theatrical light. The children in the audience stirred with excitement as the narrators set the stage for what was promised to be a delightful rendition of Little Red Riding Hood. From my obscured balcony seat, I watched intently, a surprise visitor amidst an audience of unsuspecting families. My wife, Elena, with her hair cascading in soft waves beneath the iconic red hood, stepped onto the stage. Her voice was melodic, enchanting even, perfectly pitched to capture the hearts of the little ones who sat cross-legged in their excitement. As the play progressed, Elena's portrayal of Little Red was impeccable. Her movements were graceful and her expressions, vivid. My chest swelled with pride. How fortunate I was to call this talented actress my wife. The idea to surprise her had been spontaneous. I wanted to see her perform without the weight of my gaze making her nervous. The final scene drew close, and the children cheered as Little Red outsmarted the wolf. Applause broke out as the cast took their bows. I decided it was time to make my presence known. Slipping quietly from the balcony, I made my way backstage, the echoes of my footsteps drowned by the lingering cheers of the audience. The corridors of the theater were dimly lit, a stark contrast to the brightness of the stage. I navigated through the maze of props and costumes toward Elena's dressing room, my heart skipping in anticipation of her reaction. But as I approached, the muffled sounds of laughter halted my steps. Curiosity tinged with an inexplicable chill whispered through me as I pressed closer to the slightly ajar door. Through the narrow gap, the sight that greeted me was like a perverse twist in the play I had just applauded. There, amidst the clutter of makeup and costumes, was Elena, still donned in her red hood, yet in a far less innocent embrace with the man who played the wolf, his costume partly discarded. The laughter I had heard was hers, carefree and intimate. The scene before me unfolded like a slow, tortuous nightmare. My heart pounded against my ribcage, fury and shock waging a war within. The visual burned into my memory, her hand on his chest, his head tilted back in laughter at something she said, the intimacy of their proximity. I retreated silently, the image etched into my being. The corridor felt colder as I stepped outside, the air biting as harshly as the betrayal I had just witnessed. The drive home was a blur of red and white, the stoplights mocking me with their clarity, unlike the turmoil that clouded my mind. The image of Elena with him ignited a dark resolve within me. I had loved her, supported her dreams, and in return, she had draped our life in deceit. But I would not let this deception go unchallenged. I would dismantle the life she knew, piece by piece. I would ensure that the curtain fell on her deceitful acts, just as it had risen this evening on her performance. By the time I reached our empty home, my plan was clear. This act of betrayal would not go unpunished. She had played her role without a script, and now, I would write the ending. My fingers drummed against the steering wheel as I waited outside the quaint coffee shop where my friend, Marcus, had agreed to meet me. The sky above mirrored my turmoil, clouds roiling into a dark tapestry. As Marcus slid into the passenger seat, his brow furrowed in concern at my grim expression. "What's going on, man? You look like hell," he said, his voice laced with worry. I took a deep breath, the weight of my secret poised on the brink of revelation. "I found out Elena is cheating on me," I blurted, the words tasting bitter. Marcus's reaction was a mix of shock and disbelief. "Elena? That doesn't sound like her, man. Are you sure?" The memory flashed vividly, unwelcome and sharp. "I saw her, Marcus. After her show, in the dressing room, with him." The details poured out, each word a hammer to my resolve. Marcus's hand came down on my shoulder, a silent anchor in the rough sea of my rage. "What are you going to do?" he asked after a moment, his voice steady. "I want to ruin her, Marcus. She made a fool out of me. I want her to feel a fraction of the pain she's caused." My knuckles whitened as I gripped the steering wheel tighter. He nodded, understanding the darkness that had taken root. Okay, let's think this through. You need evidence. Hard proof that she can't talk her way out of. The plan began to form, crystallizing with each spoken thought. I'll start with her phone. She's careless with it at home. I bet she's got messages, photos, something. And I'll help you with the tech side, Marcus offered, his loyalty unwavering. We can set up some surveillance, see if this guy comes around when you're not there. Gratitude mixed with my resolve. Thanks, man. I knew I could count on you. Over the next few days, we put our plan into action. I installed hidden cameras in our house, small and inconspicuous, blending seamlessly with our decor. Marcus, with his knack for technology, handled the setup of software on her phone when she carelessly left it charging in our kitchen. Every evening, we scoured through the footage and data, gathering pieces of her betrayal. Texts exchanged with heart emojis, plans to meet when I was supposed to be on a photo shoot, photographs that twisted the knife deeper into my heart. With each discovery, my resolve hardened. I began to pull on the threads of her life, unraveling her reputation. Anonymous tips to her theater group about her unprofessional conduct, suggestive enough to stir doubts. Calls to her mother, hinting at Elena's supposed dissatisfaction with our marriage, sowing seeds of familial discord. As the storm within me grew, so did the storm outside. That night, as lightning split the sky, mirroring the schism in my life, I sat in the dark living room, watching the latest footage. There she was, laughing on our sofa, her deceit as clear as the crack of thunder that shook the house. The stage was set, the players unaware of their pending doom. I was no longer just a betrayed husband, I was the director of her downfall. The act of revenge was in full swing, and I was determined to deliver the final blow that would bring down the curtain on her facade, once and for all. The air was charged with tension as I sat across from Elena at our kitchen table, the evidence of her betrayal neatly stacked in front of me. The room was silent save for the ticking of the clock, a countdown to the moment of confrontation. She looked at me, puzzled by the somber setting I had orchestrated. Elena, we need to talk, I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She smiled weakly, a hint of nervousness flickering in her eyes. Of course, what's on your mind? I slid the stack of photos and printouts across the table towards her. Why don't you tell me what this is about? I said, each word deliberate, heavy with accusation. Her eyes widened as she rifled through the papers, her face draining of color with each passing second. Where did you get these? She stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Does it matter? What matters is what they represent, Elena. Or should I ask Little Red Riding Hood and her not-so-big bad wolf? The bitterness in my voice was palpable. She shook her head, tears brimming. It's not what it looks like, I swear. It was a mistake. A mistake. I interrupted, anger flaring. Is that what you call it? An ongoing mistake that you kept hidden from me? Elena buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I was going to end it. I didn't know how to tell you. Please, we can fix this. Fix this. The idea seemed laughable now. No, Elena. It's too late for that. I know everything. I detailed the surveillance, the intercepted messages, the planned encounters. You didn't just betray me. You mocked our vows. Her tears were relentless, but my heart had hardened against them. What are you going to do? She asked, a tremor in her voice. I want a divorce, I stated flatly. And I've made sure everyone knows why. Your theater group, your friends, our families. I've spared no detail. Her gasp was sharp, a knife to the silence. You didn't. I did. And I'm not done yet. My tone was cold, resolute. I stood up, pushing the chair back with a scrape. I suggest you find a good lawyer. Leaving her amidst the ruins of our life, I went to meet Marcus at a local bar, the dim lighting a match for my mood. He raised an eyebrow as I approached, sliding a drink towards me. "How did it go?" he asked. "Exactly as planned," I replied, taking a sip of the harsh liquid. "She knows it's over, and soon, everyone else will too." Marcus nodded, clinking his glass against mine. "To new beginnings, then, however they come." "To new beginnings," I echoed, the words hollow. I knew there would be no real new beginning for me. This path I'd chosen was dark and would likely remain so. As I sat there, the weight of my actions settling around me, I pondered the finality of it all. The stage was set for a dramatic end to our marriage, but as the initial satisfaction ebbed away, I was left wondering if the price of revenge was more than I had anticipated. The intrigue of my plot had ensnared not just Elena, but me as well. As the pieces fell into place, the curtain fell too, on the life I once knew, on the man I once was. The world outside the courthouse was a blur of indistinguishable faces and muted sounds, as if I were submerged underwater, distant from reality. Inside, the final decree of our divorce had been stamped with a cold finality that matched the chill in my bones. Elena stood a few feet away, surrounded by her lawyers, her face a mask of composed devastation. Our eyes met briefly, charged with the remnants of a love that had decayed into something unrecognizable. As she turned to leave, her lawyer approached me, his steps measured, his face somber. "Mr. Taylor, my client wishes you the best. She regrets the pain this has caused," he said, extending a hand that I stared at but did not take. "Regrets usually follow poor decisions, don't they?" I replied, my voice void of warmth. Leaving the courthouse, I felt the weight of the gaze of those who recognized me, their whispers painting me as the cuckolded husband. It fueled a bitter resolve within me. This chapter of humiliation was closed, but the book of retribution was far from complete. Back at my now solitary home, the silence was a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. My phone beeped, a message from Marcus, checking in. Ignoring it, I dialed a number I had memorized but never used. The call connected, and a cautious voice answered. "Hello. It's time we met in person." "You know who this is," I said, keeping my voice steady. A pause, then a resigned sigh. "Where?" "Central Park, by the Bethesda fountain." 1 hour. I ended the call, my pulse steady. The plan had always been to confront the man who wore the wolf costume, to face him not as an abstract part of Elena's betrayal but as flesh and blood. But there was more to my plan, a darker finale that had formed in the depths of my shattered heart. As I approached the fountain, I saw him. He was alone, hands buried in the pockets of his coat, his posture tense. We acknowledged each other with a nod, and then, without a word, began to walk. "You ruined my life," I started, the coldness in my voice belying the rage beneath. He stopped, turning to face me. "It wasn't just me. It takes two to. I'm not here for excuses. I know what happened, and I've seen what it did to me. Now, you'll see what it does to you." My hand dipped into my coat, pulling out an envelope thick with photographs and documents, proof of his embezzlement from the theater company, a crime far older and more severe than infidelity. His eyes widened, understanding dawning. "You wouldn't." "I already have. Copies are with the police, the theater board, and the local newspaper. You're finished here." The satisfaction of watching his face crumble was sharp, almost exhilarating. He lunged at me, his anger making him reckless. We grappled, falling to the ground. My rage, honed by months of betrayal, gave me an edge, and I managed to pin him, my arm pressed against his throat. "This is the cost of betrayal," I hissed into his ear. As he struggled beneath me, I continued, "Remember this lesson, if nothing else." Leaving him coughing on the ground, I walked away, my heart pounding not with victory, but a hollow defeat. The pain of Elena's betrayal and the actions it drove me to lingered, a bitter aftertaste. Weeks later, as I sat in the quiet of my empty house, the doorbell rang. A delivery, a final divorce document, perhaps. But no, it was a package, no return address, its contents heavy. Inside, a single stone sculpture of a wolf, its eyes hauntingly human, a reminder of the cost of vengeance. I sat back, the weight of the entire ordeal settling around me. The echoes of betrayal might fade over time, but they would never truly vanish. And as I stared at the stone wolf, I understood, in my quest for revenge, I had become what I despised most. The deceiver, the betrayer, the monster behind the mask.